Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for choosing this quiet moment. Maybe today was a long day. Maybe your mind feels a little tired. Maybe your heart needs a little rest. You are in the right place. This is English Owl, a quiet place for simple English, a quiet place for gentle stories, a quiet place for small steps. Here you do not need to rush. You do not need to understand every word. You do not need to be perfect. Just listen. Let the words come slowly. Let the story walk beside you. If this is your first time here, you are always welcome. And if you have been here before, welcome home. If these calm stories help you learn English, and if they give your heart a little hope, you can join our quiet community. There will always be another story waiting for you. Another small lesson. Another soft voice. Another reason to keep going. Today's story begins with a seed. A tiny seed. It is so small that many people do not notice it. It lies under the dark soil. It cannot see the sun. It cannot see the tree. It cannot see the flowers. It cannot see the birds. But still, the seed begins. It does not ask, "Am I ready?" It does not wait for perfect weather. It does not wait for confidence. It does not wait for someone to clap. The seed simply grows. Quietly. Slowly. One small moment at a time. Your life can be like that seed. Your English can be like that seed. Your confidence can be like that seed. Maybe you are waiting. Waiting to feel ready. Waiting to feel brave. Waiting to feel smart. Waiting for the perfect time. But the perfect time is often very quiet. It does not come with a loud sound. It does not knock on your door. It often looks like today. A normal day. A simple day. A small day. But small days can change everything. One word can begin a sentence. One sentence can begin a story. One story can begin a new life. So tonight, do not worry about the whole road. Do not worry about the whole mountain. Do not worry about the whole future. Just take one small step, because small steps still move you forward. Now, let the story begin. The village was still sleeping. Only a few windows were bright. The morning air was cool. A soft wind moved through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bird welcomed the new day. A young boy walked slowly along a narrow path. His hands were inside his pockets. His head was down. He stopped beside an old wooden fence. On the other side, an old gardener was already working. The old man smiled. "Good morning." The boy smiled back. "Good morning." For a while, neither of them spoke. The gardener placed tiny seeds into the soil, one by one, slowly, carefully. The boy watched every movement. Finally, he asked, "How long will it take?" The gardener looked at the small holes in the ground. "A long time." The boy looked surprised. "Aren't you worried?" The old man shook his head. "No. What if nothing grows?" The gardener covered another seed with soil. "Something is already growing." The boy looked around. He saw brown earth. He saw small stones. He saw fallen leaves. But he saw nothing growing. The gardener stood up. He brushed the dirt from his hands. "Come with me." They walked to a large tree. Its branches reached toward the morning sky. Birds rested quietly among the leaves. The shade covered almost the entire garden. The old man touched the trunk. This tree was once smaller than your hand. The boy looked up. It was? Yes. It was only a seed. The wind gently moved the branches. Sunlight danced across the grass. For a long moment, the boy said nothing. The gardener picked up a single leaf. He placed it on the boy's hand. Every big thing begins very quietly. The boy looked at the leaf. Its lines spread in every direction, like tiny roads, like tiny rivers, like tiny choices. The gardener smiled again. People always notice the tree. They almost never notice the seed. They walked back to the garden. The old man continued planting. One seed, then another, then another. The boy counted without thinking. 5, 10, 15, 20. Every movement looked exactly the same. The gardener never hurried. He never looked at the sky. He never asked if he was making progress. He simply planted. Across the garden, a small snail moved over a stone. Very slowly, almost too slowly to see. The boy laughed. It will never get anywhere. The gardener looked at the snail. It is already moving. The boy watched more carefully. The snail was still slow, but it was no longer in the same place. The old man looked toward the hills. The river is slow. The tree is slow. The sunrise is slow. The seasons are slow, but they always arrive. The boy looked at his shoes. I want to learn English, but I think I am too slow. The gardener smiled as if he had been waiting for those words. He picked up another tiny seed. He placed it into the boy's hand. This seed knows only one thing. It keeps growing. It never compares itself with the flower beside it. It never worries about the tallest tree. It simply follows the light. The boy closed his hand gently. The seed felt very small, almost weightless. But somehow, it felt important. The wind became quiet. The bird sang again. Far away, the sun slowly climbed above the hills. Nothing happened all at once. Everything changed little by little. And the garden, without making any sound, became a little brighter. The next morning, the boy returned to the garden. The old gardener was already there. He was watering the soil, very slowly, very carefully. The boy looked at the ground. It looks the same. The gardener smiled. Does it? The boy nodded. I cannot see anything. The gardener placed the watering can beside a stone. He pointed at the earth. Look a little longer. The boy became quiet. The wind moved across the garden. A butterfly landed on a white flower. Two birds flew above the trees. Everything seemed peaceful. Then, the boy saw something. A tiny green line, so small that he almost missed it. He moved closer. It is coming out. The gardener nodded. Yes, it has been growing every day. But today, your eyes finally noticed. The boy watched the little plant. It looked weak. It looked fragile. A single drop of water rested on one tiny leaf. The morning sunlight touched it. The drop shined like a small star. It is beautiful. The gardener smiled again. Small things often are. For a while, they simply stood together. No one hurried. No one spoke. Only the leaves moved. Only the birds sang. Only the little plant continued growing. The boy looked at his notebook. Inside, He had written 20 English words: tree, river, morning, garden, hope, smile, light, flower, stone, bird, and many more. I still know only a few words. The gardener picked up the notebook. He closed it gently. Yesterday, you knew fewer. The boy laughed softly. I guess that is true. The gardener pointed toward the forest. Every tree looked strong. Every branch reached into the bright sky. But under the ground, thousands of roots continued growing. Nobody could see them. Yet they became stronger every day. Learning is like roots. You do not always see it, but it is always happening. The boy looked at the little plant once more. Then he looked at the giant tree. They looked completely different. One was beginning. One had already grown. But suddenly, they did not seem so different anymore. The little plant was simply younger. The gardener sat on an old wooden bench. The boy sat beside him. Neither of them spoke. A small cloud slowly crossed the blue sky. The wind became warm. Time continued moving. Without noise. Without pressure. Without fear. The gardener finally whispered, "The sun never asks the flower to hurry. The flower never asks the tree to become smaller. The river never competes with the mountain. Everything grows in its own way." The boy closed his eyes. He listened to the birds. He listened to the wind. He listened to the quiet garden. For the first time, he did not feel behind. He did not feel late. He did not feel afraid. He simply felt like a small seed, growing toward the light. Maybe today, you also feel like that little seed. Maybe you cannot see your progress. Maybe your future still feels hidden. That is all right. Keep reading. Keep listening. Keep walking. Keep smiling. Small roots become strong trees. Small drops become wide rivers. Small words become beautiful conversations. And small steps still move you forward. Always. The boy left the garden just before noon. The little seed stayed behind, hidden under the warm soil. The old gardener waved his hand. "See you tomorrow." The boy smiled. "I will come back." He walked along a quiet road. Tall grass moved with the wind. Small white flowers covered the fields. The air smelled fresh. Everything felt slow. Everything felt peaceful. After a long walk, he heard water. A small river crossed the path. The water was clear. Tiny fish moved between smooth stones. The boy sat beside the river. He picked up a round stone, then another, then another. He carefully placed them on top of each other. One stone, then one more, then another. Soon, a small tower appeared. He smiled. An old fisherman was watching from the bridge. "That is a beautiful tower." The boy looked at the stones. "It is very small." The fisherman walked closer. So was the first tree. So was the first river. So was the first mountain. The boy laughed. "I don't think mountains are small." The old man pointed toward the hills. "They become mountains one stone at a time." The boy looked at his little tower again. Maybe small things were not so small. The fisherman sat beside him. Neither of them hurried. The river continued flowing. A leaf landed on the water. It moved around a large rock. It never stopped. It never complained. It simply found another way. The fisherman watched the leaf. The river never fights the stone. It simply keeps moving. The boy followed the leaf with his eyes. Soon, it disappeared around a quiet corner. He opened his notebook. Today, he wrote only one sentence. Small steps still move you forward. He read it once, then again. The words felt simple, but the river seemed to understand them. The water repeated the same lesson, without speaking, without explaining. Keep moving. Keep flowing. Keep going. Clouds slowly crossed the blue sky. A bird landed near the water. It drank quietly. Then it flew away. The boy closed his notebook. He took one deep breath. He listened. The river, the wind, the birds, the leaves. Nothing was trying to become faster. Nothing was trying to become someone else. Everything simply followed its own path. A little girl appeared on the other side of the bridge. She carried a basket full of apples. One apple fell onto the road. The boy picked it up. "Thank you," she said. "You are welcome." She smiled. Then she continued walking. The conversation lasted only a few seconds. But somehow, the afternoon felt brighter. Kindness was also a small step. The fisherman stood up. "The river will still be here tomorrow." The boy nodded. "So will I." He started walking home. The sun was lower now. Long shadows covered the road. Behind him, the river continued flowing. Ahead of him, the quiet village waited. Inside his pocket, the notebook felt a little heavier. Inside his heart, something felt a little lighter. He still knew only a few English words. He still had many mistakes. He still had many questions. But today, he had one more step than yesterday. And that was enough. More than enough. The next morning, the boy left home before sunrise. The village was still quiet. Only the bakery was awake. Warm light spilled through the little windows. The smell of fresh bread floated into the cool air. The boy smiled. He always liked that smell. An old woman stood outside the bakery. She carried an empty basket. She looked at the sky. Then she looked at the road. Then she smiled. "Good morning." "Good morning?" The boy walked beside her. For a while, they listened to their footsteps. Step, step, step. The sound was soft, almost like a clock. The old woman suddenly stopped. She pointed at a large clock hanging above the bakery door. It was old. Its wooden hands moved very slowly. Tick, tick, tick. The boy looked up. "It feels slow." The old woman nodded. "It has always been slow, but it has never been late." The boy laughed. "Can a clock be patient?" The old woman smiled. "Maybe patience is simply trusting time." They continued walking. At the end of the street, they found a small cat sleeping on a stone wall. The cat opened one eye. It stretched. Then it closed its eyes again. It did not hurry. It did not worry. The sun was rising anyway. The old woman whispered, "Nature never rushes." The cat knows. The flowers know. The morning knows. The boy looked toward the hills. The light slowly touched the trees. One by one, no tree tried to reach the sunlight first. Every branch waited quietly. Every leaf accepted its own place. They reached a little square. Children were running. One boy was very fast. Another boy was much slower. The slower boy laughed louder. He stopped to help a little girl pick up her books. The faster boy disappeared around the corner. The old woman watched them. Who do you think will remember today? The boy thought for a moment. The little girl. The old woman nodded. Speed is easy to see. Kindness stays longer. The bakery bell rang behind them. Birds answered from the rooftops. The village slowly woke up. Everything happened a little at a time. The boy opened his notebook. He wanted to write something important, but only 4 words came into his mind. Trust your own time. He read the sentence again. The old woman looked at the page. That is enough. Only 4 words? Sometimes 4 words can change a whole life. The boy closed the notebook. A gentle wind moved across the square. A single yellow leaf floated through the air. It did not know where it would land. Still, it danced with the wind. The boy followed it until it disappeared. Then he smiled. Maybe he did not need to know everything. Maybe he only needed to keep walking. Step, step, step. The old clock continued ticking. The bakery continued making bread. The cat continued sleeping. The sun continued rising. And without anyone noticing, the boy became a little braver than yesterday. The road became quieter as the boy left the village. The sound of footsteps slowly disappeared. Only the wind stayed beside him. It moved gently through the tall grass. Every blade leaned together, then slowly stood up again. The boy smiled. It looked like the field was breathing. A little farther ahead, he found an old wooden bench. The paint was almost gone. The wood carried many small lines. Some were deep, some were light. Time had quietly written its story there. An old man sat on the bench. He held a small notebook. He was not writing. He was simply watching the clouds. The boy stopped. The old man looked at him and smiled. Would you like to sit? The boy nodded. For a long time, neither of them spoke. White clouds floated across the blue sky. One looked like a bird. Another looked like a mountain. A small one looked like a boat. The shapes slowly changed. The old man finally asked, "What do you see?" "A bird." The boy answered. The old man looked again. "I see a tree." The boy laughed. "But it is the same cloud." The old man nodded. "Yes, and that is why every person has a different journey." The wind became a little stronger. The cloud no longer looked like a bird. Now it looked like nothing at all. The boy watched until it disappeared. "I guess it changed." The old man shook his head. "Maybe you changed." The boy became quiet. He looked at his hands. He remembered yesterday's little seed. He remembered the river. He remembered the old gardener. Everything felt connected somehow. The old man opened his notebook. Inside, there were only short sentences. 1 sentence on each page. The pages were old. The words were simple. The boy read 1 sentence. "Do not hurry the sunrise." He turned another page. "Small roots hold big trees." Another page. "The quiet road still leads home." The boy smiled. "These are very short." The old man closed the notebook. "That is why I remember them." At that moment, a little girl ran across the field. She was chasing a yellow butterfly. She never caught it, but she laughed every time it flew away. The butterfly landed on a white flower, then another, then another. It never stayed in one place for long. The old man pointed toward it. Happiness is sometimes like that. You do not catch it. You simply walk beside it. The boy watched the butterfly disappear into the flowers. The afternoon sun became warmer. A soft shadow from a nearby tree covered the bench. The leaves above them whispered quietly. The old man stood up. So, did you learn something today? The boy looked at the road, then at the clouds, then at the flowers, then at the empty bench. I think so. What did you learn? The boy thought carefully. He looked at the sky one last time. I do not need to become someone else. I only need to keep walking. The old man smiled. I hoped you would say that. They walked together until the road divided. One path led toward the forest. One path led toward the village. The old man turned left. The boy turned right. Neither of them looked back. The wind carried fallen leaves across the road. One leaf landed beside the boy's feet. He picked it up. Its color was warm like the evening light. He placed it inside his notebook, not because it was perfect, but because he wanted to remember this quiet day. Sometimes, the smallest memories become the strongest courage. The sun slowly disappeared behind the hills. The sky became soft orange. Birds returned to their nests. Windows began to glow across the village. The boy walked home. One step, then another, without counting, without rushing, without fear. And somewhere, deep under the quiet garden, a tiny seed continued growing toward the light, even though nobody could see it. Just like hope, just like courage, just like tomorrow. The next morning, a gentle rain covered the village. Tiny drops rested on every leaf. The road looked darker than usual. The air smelled fresh. The boy opened his window. He listened. Rain on the roof. Rain on the trees. Rain on the quiet garden. Everything sounded soft. He picked up his notebook. Inside, a yellow leaf waited between two pages. It had become flat. Its color was still warm. The boy smiled. Some beautiful things stayed, even after the day was gone. He placed the notebook into his bag. Then he walked outside. The village moved more slowly on rainy days. The baker swept water from the front step. A little dog slept under a wooden table. Smoke rose from a small chimney. Nothing seemed to hurry. At the end of the road, the old gardener was waiting. He held two umbrellas. I thought you might come. The boy laughed. I almost stayed home. The gardener looked at the sky. The rain still helps the garden. Together, they walked between rows of young plants. Every leaf carried tiny drops of water. Each drop reflected the gray morning sky. The gardener stopped beside the smallest plant. It was still no taller than the boy's finger. It is growing. The boy looked carefully. It looks exactly the same. The gardener knelt beside the soil. He gently touched the little stem. It is growing where you cannot see. The boy became quiet. The rain continued falling. Some drops landed on his hands. Some disappeared into the earth. Some rested on the green leaves. Nothing was wasted. They reached the old tree. Rain slowly traveled down the rough bark. The gardener placed his hand against the trunk. Trees become stronger on windy days. The boy looked up. What about rainy days? The old man smiled. They need those too. The boy thought about his English. Some days felt easy. Some days felt difficult. Maybe both were necessary. A little bird landed on a low branch. Its feathers were wet. It shook its body. Tiny drops flew into the air. Then, without waiting for sunshine, the bird began to sing. The song was simple, short, clear, beautiful. The boy listened until the bird flew away. It didn't wait. The gardener nodded. No, it sang with the rain. For a long moment, they said nothing. The rain became lighter. Clouds slowly opened. A thin line of sunlight touched the garden. Every drop began to shine. Thousands of tiny lights appeared on the leaves. The whole garden looked different. The boy looked around in surprise. It is beautiful. The gardener smiled. It was beautiful before. The light simply helped you see it. The boy opened his notebook. He wrote only one sentence. Sometimes the light arrives after the rain. He closed the notebook. They walked home together. Their shoes became muddy. Their hands became cold. But their hearts felt warm. Behind them, the little plant quietly received one more day of rain. One more day of patience. One more day of invisible growth. Far above, the clouds continued moving. The river continued flowing. The wind continued singing through the trees. Nothing in nature stopped because the day was gray. Everything simply continued, step by step, drop by drop, leaf by leaf. And without making any sound, another ordinary day became another beautiful beginning. The rain was gone. The village looked new again. Every leaf carried a little light. Every stone looked clean. The boy walked along the same road. But somehow, everything felt different. Near the bridge, he heard a familiar voice. "Good morning." It was the fisherman. He sat in the same place. His fishing rod rested beside him. The river moved quietly below. The boy sat next to him. Neither of them hurried to speak. The fisherman smiled. "You came back." The boy nodded. So did the river. The old man laughed softly. "Yes, it always does." A small boat floated near the shore. It moved with the water. Sometimes left, sometimes right, but it never stopped moving. The boy watched carefully. "It looks lost." The fisherman looked at the boat. "Does it?" "It never goes in a straight line." The fisherman picked up a little stick. He placed it on the water. The current carried it away. It still reaches the river. The boy followed the stick with his eyes. Around one stone, past another, under the bridge, then out of sight. It never fought the water. The fisherman nodded. It trusted the journey. The wind carried the smell of fresh grass. White clouds floated slowly above them. On the other side of the river, a little rabbit appeared. It stopped, looked around, then disappeared into the flowers. The boy smiled. Everything seemed to have its own time. The rabbit, the river, the clouds, the flowers, even the silence. The fisherman opened a small wooden box. Inside, there were smooth stones. Every stone looked different. Some were round, some were long, some were almost white, some were dark like the night sky. "I collect these." The boy picked up one stone. It felt warm. "Why?" The fisherman looked at the river. This one was once sharp. He picked another. This one too. The boy touched the edges. They were soft, very soft. The river changed them. The fisherman smiled. Slowly, Every day, without anyone noticing, the boy became quiet. He looked at his hands. Maybe people changed like stones. Not in one morning, not in one week, but little by little. The fisherman closed the box. The sound was gentle, almost like closing an old book. The boy opened his notebook. He did not write immediately. He simply listened. Water, wind, birds, leaves. Some lessons arrive without words. After a while, he wrote one short sentence. The river is patient with every stone. He read it once, then closed the notebook. The fisherman stood up. The sun is getting lower. The boy looked west. Golden light covered the water. The whole river looked like flowing glass. Thousands of tiny lights danced together. No light tried to shine brighter than another. Together, they became beautiful. The fisherman walked toward the village. The boy stayed behind. He picked up one smooth stone. He placed it inside his pocket. Not because it was special, but because today was. The river continued flowing. The clouds continued traveling. The wind continued singing. And somewhere, deep inside the quiet boy, another sharp corner became a little softer. Nobody could see it, but it was happening, just like the river. Quietly, patiently, every single day. Evening arrived quietly. The sky became softer. Blue slowly turned into orange. Orange slowly turned into gold. The boy walked toward the hill behind the village. He visited this place whenever he wanted to think, or whenever he wanted to stop thinking. The path was narrow. Small flowers grew between the stones. Tiny insects danced above the grass. Everything looked peaceful. At the top of the hill, an old wooden bench waited beside a single tree. The boy sat down. The tree moved gently with the wind. Its leaves whispered above his head. He opened his notebook. Inside, he found the yellow leaf, the smooth stone, and many short sentences. He smiled. The notebook was slowly becoming a little garden. Each page carried a small memory. Each memory carried a quiet lesson. A familiar sound came from behind. Step, step, step. The old gardener slowly climbed the hill. He carried a small paper bag. "I thought you might be here." The boy laughed. "I thought you might know." The old man sat beside him. For a while, they watched the sky. Neither of them spoke. Far away, birds returned to their nests. Smoke rose from little houses. The river reflected the evening light. The whole village looked warm. The gardener opened the paper bag. Inside were 2 pieces of fresh bread. He handed one to the boy. The bread was still warm. Steam quietly disappeared into the cool air. The boy broke off a small piece. "It smells nice." The gardener nodded. "It took all morning." The boy looked surprised. "So long?" The old man smiled. The best things usually do. They ate slowly. No hurry. No noise. Only bread, wind, and birds. After a while, the gardener pointed toward the horizon. Look, the sun was touching the hills. Very slowly. It did not fall. It did not rush. It simply disappeared one gentle moment at a time. The boy watched without blinking. "It is beautiful." The gardener nodded. "It happens every day. Maybe beautiful things become invisible when we stop noticing them." The boy looked around again. The tree, the bench, the grass, the bread, the wind. Nothing had changed. Yet everything felt special. A little girl walked across the field below. She carried a lantern. Its small light moved slowly through the evening. The boy followed the tiny light until it reached the village. It is so small. The gardener smiled. So are stars. The first star appeared above them. Then another. Then another. Soon, the whole sky became full of quiet lights. No star tried to shine brighter. No star hurried to reach the night. Each one simply stayed where it belonged. The boy closed his notebook. He placed one hand on the old bench. The wood felt cool now. The day was ending. But nothing felt finished. Tomorrow, the little seed would still be growing. The river would still be flowing. The bird would still be singing. The bread would rise again. The sun would return. And he would take another step. The gardener stood up. It is getting dark. The boy nodded. They walked down the hill together. Behind them, the old tree continued moving with the wind. Above them, the stars quietly watched the road. Ahead of them, small lights appeared in the village windows. The boy looked at those warm lights, one by one. They reminded him of something. Maybe hope is not a big fire. Maybe hope is many small lights, waiting for someone to notice them. He smiled. His steps were still small. The road was still long. But tonight, that felt perfectly enough. Night came slowly. The village became quiet. One window after another filled with warm light. The boy walked home along the familiar road. His steps were slow, but they no longer felt heavy. A cool breeze moved through the trees. The leaves answered with a gentle sound. Everything seemed to whisper, "Welcome home." The little bridge waited beside the river. The water reflected the first stars. Small circles appeared whenever a fish touched the surface. The boy stopped. He rested both hands on the wooden rail. The river looked different at night. It was darker, calmer, softer, yet it never stopped moving. An owl landed on a nearby branch. It did not make a sound. It simply watched the river. The boy smiled. The owl looked peaceful. It did not seem afraid of the darkness. Maybe it trusted the night. Maybe it knew that morning always comes back. The boy took out his notebook. The pages moved gently in the wind. Inside were simple things. A yellow leaf, a smooth stone, short sentences, quiet memories. He slowly turned each page. The garden, the old gardener, the fisherman, the old woman, the warm bread, the little bird, the rain, the butterfly. Every page felt like another small light. He found an empty page. For a long time, he wrote nothing. He simply listened. The river, the wind, the distant sound of a dog, the quiet village. Then he picked up his pencil. He wrote one sentence. "I am already on my way." He looked at the words. They were simple, but they felt true. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. It was the old gardener. He carried a small lantern. Its light was warm, not bright, just enough. The old man stood beside the boy. Neither of them spoke. They looked at the river together. After a while, the gardener asked, "What do you see?" The boy answered, "A quiet river, The gardener smiled. And what else? The boy watched a little longer. He saw the stars dancing on the water. He saw the moving shadows. He saw the lantern beside them. Finally, he whispered, "I see a road." The old man nodded. The river is always showing us one. The lantern moved gently with the wind. Its small flame never rushed. It simply stayed alive. The gardener lifted it a little higher. You do not need sunlight to take one more step. Sometimes a small light is enough. The boy looked at the path ahead. The road disappeared into the night. He could not see the end, but he could see the next few steps. And somehow, that felt enough. A shooting star crossed the sky. It appeared for only a moment. Then it was gone. The boy smiled. Beautiful things do not always stay long, but they stay in our hearts. The owl quietly opened its wings. Without noise, it disappeared into the night. The river continued flowing. The lantern continued glowing. The stars continued shining. The boy closed his notebook. He placed it carefully inside his bag. Tomorrow, he would learn another word. Tomorrow, he would take another walk. Tomorrow, the little seed would grow a little deeper. Tomorrow, the river would travel a little farther. Tomorrow, he would become a little stronger. Not because life became easier, but because he decided to keep walking. The boy took one slow step, then another. The warm lantern moved beside him. Behind them, the quiet river carried the stars toward the sea. Above them, the night held every small light with gentle hands. And somewhere inside the silent village, hope stayed awake, waiting for another ordinary morning. The village was asleep. Only a few windows still held a little light. The boy quietly opened his bedroom window. Cool night air filled the room. He placed his notebook on the wooden desk. Beside it, he put the smooth stone, the yellow leaf, and a tiny seed the gardener had given him. The room was silent, yet it never felt empty. The boy looked at the little seed. It rested in his hand without moving. It made no sound. It asked for nothing. Still, he believed it would become something beautiful. He smiled. Then he opened the notebook one last time. He slowly turned every page. The garden, the old tree, the fisherman, the river, the warm bread, the butterfly, the rain, the stars. Every page carried a quiet memory. Every memory carried one small step. He found the last empty page. For a long time, he simply looked outside. The moon rested above the village. Clouds moved gently across the sky. Somewhere, an owl called from the old forest. The sound was soft, calm, patient. The boy picked up his pencil. He did not think for very long. He wrote only one sentence. Tomorrow begins today. He looked at the words. Then he smiled. Very quietly. Outside, the little river continued its journey. It did not stop for the night. The wind continued moving through the trees. The stars continued shining above the hills. The tiny seed rested peacefully. Everything continued. Slowly, quietly, faithfully. The boy closed the notebook. The sound was gentle, like the end of a beautiful day. He blew out the small candle beside the window. The room became dark, but the moonlight stayed. Soft silver light covered the desk, the notebook, the leaf, the stone, the seed. Everything waited for morning. The boy closed his eyes. He remembered the gardener's smile. He remembered the fisherman by the river. He remembered the old woman beside the clock. He remembered the bird that sang in the rain. None of them hurried. None of them worried. They simply lived one quiet moment at a time. The boy took one slow breath, then another. His thoughts became lighter. His heart became quieter. Outside, the owl quietly spread its wings. It flew above the sleeping village, above the silent river, above the little garden, above the old bench, above every house where someone was still hoping for a better tomorrow. The owl did not carry answers. It carried gentle company through the night. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps hope does not arrive with loud voices. Perhaps it arrives like moonlight, like a warm loaf of bread, like a smooth stone in your pocket, like a yellow leaf inside a notebook, like a tiny seed hidden under the earth. Small, quiet, easy to miss, yet always growing. If today felt difficult, rest. If today felt slow, rest. If today felt ordinary, remember the seed. It is still growing, even now. Tomorrow, the river will flow again. The birds will sing again. The sun will rise again. And you, without even noticing, will take another small step. Thank you for spending this quiet moment with us. Take good care of yourself. Take one small step tomorrow. And whenever you need a peaceful place, we will be here. Good night. See you in the next story.